Despite how valuable replications are, it's very rare for replication to happen. Now, Hammer meshes analysis is already out of date because I think things are starting to change. But for the most part, replication is quite rare. And basically what he shows in the paper is even a bunch of years later, after publication, most empirical papers have not been replicated in any way that's sort of documented in the research record. So this is the table. The first two journals are, good field journals in labor economics, Industrial Labor Relations Review, and then the Journal of Human Resources, JHR. So those are two good field journals. And then the AER, which is like the flagship American Economic Association journal, the most cited journal, et cetera. He basically reached out to the authors who had written, all the authors who had written empirical papers in these journals. He got really good response rates. He's a pretty prominent scholar. He reached out to them, and all they had to do was answer a really simple question. Did anybody request your data, basically? So most people replied, so it's probably pretty reliable. And for the field journal articles, 4 years later, 3 years later, for the median article, no one had asked for the data. So for the median article, no one had sort of checked. For the AER, the median was 3 requests, and this was like 6 or 7 years later. So again, these are, by definition, almost quite influential articles. They're very well cited. Very rarely is the data requested. In fact, many of these requests weren't even for replication activities. Very often people request your data, as you'll find when you start collecting more data. They request your data because they're like, I really want this variable. Like, I'm doing this other analysis. I want that variable. So it isn't necessarily even for a replication exercise. This is like an upper bound of some kind on how many times people were looking to replicate. And this is now the distribution of requests, again, for the Industrial and Labor Relations Review. There we go. And Journal of Human Resources. And again, you can see in most cases it's 0, and a small number of cases, 1 or 2 people have requested. It is a pretty skewed distribution. For some of the probably most influential papers, you see a few papers where there were a lot of requests for data. So I guess that conforms with what we're saying. And again, if you have this kind of more optimistic view, like, look, for the most important work, they will get replicated. Maybe these are the best papers. Well, then maybe, you're not as worried.